Welcome to Modernized Planning, where we explore how organizations can move beyond outdated processes and tools to embrace smarter and more holistic approaches to budgeting, planning, and forecasting. Let's dive into today's episode.
Thank you so much, Liran, for joining Collective's Modernized Planning. Today, I would like to kick off our conversation with what does modernized planning really mean to you and everybody over at Lumel?
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Dennis, there, and happy to be here. Let's speak about modernizing planning. As you asked, there are a couple of different areas to speak about. I think the most important one, if we are in that area of data and planning, for many, many years, we used to separate planning from data. And to me, maybe the number one modernization factor is that we want to make sure that the planning and the data of the organization are coming together. They're not siloed. And we don't need to take data not to Excel and not to an external system, but we're making sure that where data resides, planning is happening. So we're keeping everything very much closed and condensed. And I think the second piece of that is we want to make it very quick and very agile. We want to be able and do planning on each and every data point in the organization and not thinking about, now we need to do a digital transformation that will take us a couple of years to execute. So those are the key factors of modernization from Lumel's side and from my perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is a great point. Anywhere where that data resides, and now with Microsoft Fabric coming out and being a big player in that, I think that really integrates all of your data, removes those data silos, and now with Lumel into play, comes in and adds that planning aspect to it. So you're not just doing both of those things inside of silos, you're gathering your data, you're cleaning it up, you can use it for reporting, but now you can also use that data for planning.
Right. And I did my first planning project. Sometimes I had to say that, but probably like over 25 years ago. And for, I think, most of my career, I was keep pitching that, hey, BI and planning cannot live together because BI is read-only and planning is write-back. So how do you merge those two pieces together, right? And now, you mentioned with Fabric, with our technology, with just, the advanced technology around us, we can say, well, they shouldn't be separated anymore. We can definitely put them together.
Yeah, I think also that history, I mean, I've been in this area for about 25, 30 years as well. I think that's really interesting, right? Because we've both been around for a long, long time around this, and we've seen the evolution of it, or the revolution of it now. I think it's kind of sometimes a little bit easy to go, this is where we are today and everything's sorted out with the modern technologies. But take us back a little bit. Yeah? Let's have a little bit of the history lesson for the younger folks out there in terms of what had to be done, some of the challenges and so on, and what now something like Lumel is doing in terms of eliminating a lot of those challenges.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think if we taking back to the history and think about a simple database that we used to have, then of course the main challenge that we needed to figure out, how can we write data into this database? Now you can write data into database. The problem is if you do a planning process and you have a couple of people writing together, there is a concept of locking in database that again, today there are some technologies that are somehow overcoming that locking technology. So, from the historical days, the idea was let's build a planning system that does not have that locking mechanism affecting the planning. And you can have multiple users, whether that 10 users, 100 or 1,000 users doing planning all together without getting locked at the database. So I think one challenge in the history was to say, okay, how we overcome that locking mechanism. The second piece is the aggregation problem that whenever we do planning, we usually don't do planning on the transactional level. We're doing it at a higher level. So we want to aggregate that transactional data, and sometimes we want to plan by department, sometimes we want to plan by account, sometimes by product. So how do we do that kind of slice and dice concept? And that literally was the rise of the cubicle technologies. And the cube technology, there were a couple of different cube technologies, and some of them were very good and some of them were super innovative, right? And talking about 25 years ago, we were talking about in-memory cube that can run, I don't remember, probably 20 times faster than the hard drive. No one is talking about hard drive or in-memory anymore, right? It's obvious that everything is cached and quick and fast. So that doesn't happen anymore. But still, in a way, in the old days, what we had to do is to say, okay, we have a table, that's not good enough, so let's convert this table into a cube. That cube can be in memory, so it runs very fast if we slice and dice, and sometimes it has some data entry capability, so we can really do planning. And then we can speak about formula and modeling. Let's keep that aside for a second, right? And all of that was really necessary, right? Because up until recently, we were unable to do that read-write quick enough. We were unable to say, okay, we have millions of records that can aggregate it in seconds, because it takes the time to the disk to sort them and to optimize and so on. Now, what is changing now is you go to a ChatGPT and you ask a sophisticated question, and you get an answer instantly, right? And now, I would ask, so if you just need to aggregate 5 million records, do you really need now to take those records outside of your data warehouse, load them into a different tool, get them aggregated over there, give your end user a different user interface to work with? That doesn't really resonate anymore. And that's literally the whole idea, what we're saying, the technology was changing. The challenges we had to face in the past are no longer existing. So why not making sure that everything is in one place, right? And now we can speak a little bit about AI. Where do we want to do the AI?
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And that's exactly where I wanted the conversation to go is, how are companies in the age of AI now consolidating their data, adding in their planning processes, and then after all of that, also bringing into account any of their AI chatbots, their co-pilots, their agents. Have you seen that really become a common trend within the industry right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and honestly, I just ended up an hour ago a session with a company that's exactly the point. What they're saying is that some of our cash flow can be automated with AI, but we know that it's not 100% true, because there are a lot of cash flow transactions that the AI would never know about, like if you want to acquire a company or doing anything like that. So some of the planning is saying, well, the all obvious stuff, we know how much we're going to pay for electricity. We know how the premises cleaning costs are going to be. The fluctuation is not overly critical there. And then, we can say, let's give the AI to give us this prediction, but then some of the planning is not going to be, let's do it from scratch. Let's rethink about how we build those modeling. AI can do that, and the human will just do the adjustment on top of that. I do believe, and there are different numbers if you read researches around that. Sometimes people are saying 80%, sometimes people are saying 60%, but definitely a significant portion of the planning will be moving to the AI. But then there will be the human that is validating that. The human will need, of course, to adjust it and to add his own input. And now the question, so what AI will be used over there, right? And then again, I would say the same question as I said before. Do we want to take this data outside, run it into external system, even a dedicated planning silo that is doing this AI? Or do we actually say, well, with the involvement of AI will be much more accurate and if it gets more data. So we want the AI to run on the data infrastructure, and we want the AI to expose to as much data as possible, so the results will be much more accurate. And then we just want to do the adjustment and, add a layer on top of that for what AI will not be able to do, or what we think that we will need, more sophistication than AI, and still the human brain, in my eyes, is better than AI, at least for some people. So with that being said, it's the same story. We want AI to run on the data infrastructure, and we want to have the ability to quickly adjust and maybe give that adjustment back to the AI to improve the prediction modeling.
If you're attending the AFP FP&A Forum in March, don't miss your chance to connect with Collective. As event sponsors, we'll be sharing insights on modernized planning and showcasing how organizations can leverage the Microsoft data stack to drive smarter decision-making. Be sure to come by and see us at booth number 3 and check out our speaking sessions where you can learn more about transforming your planning processes.
So, Liran, as someone who's been in the industry for many moons, there's always been a lot of vendors out there, all phases of the planning journey over the last decades. Very recently, Microsoft announced that they're going to be announcing some write-back features within Fabric. What are your thoughts?
Two pieces around that. The first one, let's speak about other vendors, which I have tons of respect on. Most of those other vendors that are in the market, they came with a solution to resolve the old problem that we were talking about, right? So they came because the data platform were not really supporting a planning process. So to me, most of them, if not all of them, are really solving like old world problems. And, with this announcement you mentioned and with our technology, we're saying, okay, but now something was changed. We need to adjust into, new world type of problems. Specifically, the Microsoft announcement of writeback is important, and we're using some of the capacity of direct query and immediate updates to a data lake already now. But planning is much more than that, and that will be never enough to say, okay, just have that write-back capability to add data, because when we think about planning, we think about business modeling. How do I create a model? How can I allocate data on a real time? How can we do a rolling forecast that, every month actual is coming in and forecast is getting forward? How do we do connected planning so we can have a couple of models that are connected together to give you, final P&L or balance sheet or cash flow number? So I think there is a lot of areas on top of the write-back that are still missing. And definitely, as a company, we are thinking about write-back as phase one for very simple use cases that are very important, but usually it's more than that, just the write-back. And to add into that, there is also all the reporting pieces that needs to be adjusted with that. Okay, you do a write-back, but you also need the formatting for that and maybe some data validation. So there is still a lot of layers on top of that. And I feel that, what we're doing is to make sure that it's not just a write-back capability that Microsoft sort of announced on, but it's literally, many layers on top of that that are really required from the application standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So there's been many acronyms in this arena of planning, budgeting, forecasting, CPM, EPM, and many more.
Data entry solutions, yes.
Exactly. Are you seeing with your clients now that true, let's call it enterprise performance management, that enterprise planning capability right across the organization, very collaborative, etc., finally coming to fruition?
Absolutely. We definitely see the change in the market. Like a typical or traditional EPM system used to have usually a couple of dozens of users. That was like even mid-size enterprise and large enterprises, a little bit more than that. But it was pretty rare to see an enterprise that is changing all of the planning and connecting them together. And now with the solution coming with Power BI, it's definitely different. So just to take an example about sales performance management, one of the areas where XP&A, the extended planning and analysis, came is to say, how can we connect between this sales planning cycle where you do the sales forecast and the sales planning and quarter planning, on one side, and connect it into your revenue planning from the financial planning all together. Now what we're saying with planning solution is that, okay, the salespeople, they're already using Power BI. They already see their pipeline connected with their CRM. And that's usually a Power BI capacity. Now we're saying, okay, you need to do your planning and your forecasting of this pipeline. You can do it directly in Power BI. And then, this data is immediately featuring into our revenue planning. So you keep people in the same interface. And what we're seeing is that it's not just the license, right, or the user in the planning system for the controller. It's really like for the end user, for the individual salesperson. And the vision is really that everything is connected. Everything is already on the same data platform. The look and feel is in the same place, where the analysis is coming. So it's a definitely new generation of thinking about performance management connected to analytics and connected to the day-to-day data usage.
And I think you bring up a great point with planning across multiple departments and integrated planning inside of these platforms. I find when we're doing our implementations that all of these different departments, they generally have different systems that they're using. It could be their CRM system, their ERP system, their financial management system, project management. There's so many systems inside of organizations. And now what we need to do is consolidate that all into a data lake, a data warehouse, so you can do your reporting and planning on top of that. One of the most common mistakes that we see is the lack of kind of data prep. So actually preparing your data, cleaning your data prior to getting it inside of these reporting and planning solutions. Are you kind of seeing the same method of things, or are those the same mistakes that you're seeing inside of your implementations?
Yes, so data has been an issue and probably will be an issue that will stay with us, right? We're getting better. I feel that the main difference is that, again, talking about the old days, the problem was that, bringing this data from the CRM and bringing the data from the ERP and connecting them together was a big, complicated project. What we're seeing today, that was coming a couple of years ago, is tools like, Power Query and Power BI and others, that those processes are getting much closer to the end user. And even from a technology standpoint, it is much more easy to connect those type of dots. The more the organization understand that it's not every interface need to take like a couple of months to build, and you can do interfaces in a couple of days, it definitely makes the whole process easier. We still see organizations that are saying, well, we're still going to dump a file and to load it maybe to the Power BI in-memory model, or use a quick and dirty sort of a process. It works fast. Is it the right way? Probably not, because that will eliminate the ability to create the cross connection between all the organization together. So I think that's the innovation that is coming with Fabric, to say, okay, we want to make sure that we can map the data all together in one place, and then, putting in that one place the planning system. And technically, again, with our technology, we don't care now what is the database behind that. You don't move the data to any other place. So definitely the word is getting there. And people that are not doing that, doesn't mean necessarily that they're not successful, but it definitely will be more fire drills that they will need to go, along the way, to keep, making sure that everything is getting updated. And whenever something is changing, all those manual processes keep running.
Liran, I thought you brought up a great point there, and you passed it by a little bit quickly, but the fact that Lumel can connect to virtually any type of database, whether it be a lakehouse, a warehouse, a data lake, in virtually any platform, that is a big differentiator for Lumel compared to its competitors, where normally you would have to stand up some sort of proprietary database in between whatever your enterprise data warehouse was and your planning solution. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. That's actually one of our key differentiators, that we say you can plan anywhere, literally. And the idea is that you plan on any type of data. The way we think about planning is that you have your data platform already in place. You expose them through Power BI. And then what we're saying, you just need to add that planning as a layer on top of that. So the way we work, we're just mapping the planning on top of the existing data. You don't need a pipeline to load the data into a different database or a different schema or anything like that. We just do the planning there. Now you would say, okay, so if I have the planning as an additional piece, how does it get back into my database? This is why we're calling our solution write back, not just because it's a simple write back, but actually because we can write that extra layer that we add for planning and modeling back to your database. So that's the whole idea. We're just adding what needs to be added, and we're not duplicating any data. We're not migrating data to any other place. In most cases, it's like a winning solution because the data platforms are already advanced enough. Semantic layers are giving you all the data you need, and you just need to add that column. You just need to add one more formula. You just need a quick allocation. So why would you do so much of the work to prepare the data if you can just add, that extra layer? And that's the whole technology that we're building around that.
Today, we've been talking a lot about the old world and the old way. Two of the limiting factors back in the day were really the technology cost, as well as then the skill set cost of implementing, maintaining, developing these tools. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changed?
Let's start with the cost by nature, because we are not duplicating the whole data, and we are not building a project and an implementation that is starting just, with, okay, let's remap, let's rebuild data. We're saving a lot of the costs around those processes, and not just the implementation cost, but also a database cost, right? So if you need to migrate the data to another solution, then you need to pay for storing and processing and having that. So I think one area of cost saving is literally just eliminating those pipeline areas. The second piece, and this is our number one priority, we want to make sure that the technology, the planning screens, the planning interfaces, they're all what we call self-service, no code. there is no code in anything you're building in Lumel technology. The formulas to build a model are very much like Excel formulas, so you don't really writing scripts over there. People always getting surprised. Do we need to know DAX? No, you don't need to know DAX. Everything is set up. The key planning processes, like, how you roll over a forecast, how you create a scenario, how you do a chart, how you do a calculation, all of those are really aimed to the end user. So in that sense, we're eliminating a significant factor of the cost, the database, the process, and the build-up time. By nature, it's still a planning system, and in order to do it in the right way, you need to make sure that everything is tied together, you're doing and supporting the right processes. But the initial cost or even the time to value are getting much, much, much better.
Absolutely. And that's awesome, Liran. I think we've seen that with our clients as well. So to end the session, I'd really like to end it with, what advice would you give organizations that are just starting out on their modernized planning journey?
Don't stop it. So modernization is a journey, and that's the main difference between modernization and digital transformation, right? The digital transformation, you said, okay, let's do a project that will cost a couple of millions to the whole organization and will take a while to get there. And the problem with those digital transformation processes is that they were taking too long, too expensive. And once you execute it, wow, ChatGPT is now around. So, and we didn't plan for that. And the modernization piece is something that needs to be ongoing. So I think this is something that organization needs to say, we keep ourselves up to date. We're doing the modernization across the different departments in the organization. And, we keep taking, one step after the other. And other than the technology and, choosing the right technology, I would also say, make sure that you spend enough time also on training. So making sure that people are aware of the new technology, know how to use it, and know how to support better the organization, with more modern technologies around us.
So, Liran, I really appreciate this trip down memory lane from the old world to the new world. And it's been a pleasure having you on Modernized Planning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here and partnership with you, Dennis, Darren. Thank you.
Modernized planning is essential for eliminating manual errors, improving efficiencies, and enabling proactive, real-time, data-driven decisions. By leveraging the Microsoft data stack, including Power BI, Azure, Fabric, and AI, you can really streamline processes, integrate data seamlessly, and align your organization with a single source of truth. At Collective, we specialize in implementing tailored planning solutions to meet the unique needs of your business, setting you up for long-term success. If you're ready to transform your budgeting, planning, and forecasting, reach out to us at gocollective.com/contact.